to Florida because a press conference happening now. It is just underway on the Artemis Mission 2 update that had to be postponed after a dress rehearsal. Let's listen in on Live Impact News.
We're seeing each other a lot lately, lots of updates. Expect more of it. First, I just want to give a lot of credit to the NASA workforce and our partners that have been working really tirelessly through the Artemis campaign. It's really especially impressive work, and I know they're all feeling it after we had what was a near flawless Wet Dress 2 performance. That Artemis 2 is now back in the vehicle assembly building, which is imperfect. So we want to give you two sets of updates. Lori is going to speak with you about what we're learning about Artemis II now that it is back in the VAB, and what our path is back out to the pad and to launch this historic mission. But before that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the overall Artemis program, how we're going to achieve the President's objective to return American astronauts to the moon, to build an enduring presence, and ideally not wind up in some of the situations that we've seen recently. So let's talk about the situation. Artemis I launched more than 3 years ago. We had helium leaks with Artemis I. I'm sorry, we had hydrogen leaks with Artemis I. We had helium flow issues with Artemis I. Artemis II went out to the pad. Wet Dress 1, we had hydrogen leaks. And then after a second Wet Dress 2, where we made a lot of great progress, we wound up with helium flow issues. A lot of similarities between the two. And why is that essentially the case? Look, 3+ year launch cadence. I mean, Artemis 3 right now, as it's currently designed, won't fly for approximately another 3 years. So launching a rocket as important and as complex as SLS every 3 years is not a path to success. A component of that is when you are launching every 3 years, your skills atrophy. You lose muscle memory. We've got a lot of really talented folks that have been working hard on the Artemis II campaign, and whether they're going to want to stick around for 3 more years after this mission is complete is a question mark. This is just not the right pathway forward. And I'd say also, when you are experiencing some of the same issues between launches, you're probably got to take a close look at your process for truly getting the technical root cause, or are you getting close to it? So we've got issues with low flight rate. And I would say a great way to exacerbate that problem further is to start making changes to vehicle configuration. SLS is a very impressive vehicle. We don't want to turn every one of them into a work of art. And then I would also say that having very big objectives, a wide objective gap between missions is also not a pathway to success. So we didn't go right to Apollo 11, right? We had a whole Mercury program, Gemini, Apollo, lots of Apollo missions before we ultimately landed. Right now, our program is essentially set up with an Apollo 8 and then going right to the moon. And that is again, not a pathway to success. So what is the right way forward here? So first, today we're announcing a standardization of the SLS fleet to what we'll call essentially a near Block 1 configuration. So the idea is we want to reduce complexity to the greatest extent possible. We want to accelerate manufacturing, pull in the hardware, and increase launch rate, which obviously has a direct safety consideration to it as well. You get into a good rhythm launching great frequency, you get that muscle memory. In order to do that, we need to rebuild and strengthen the workforce here at NASA. Now, this is directly in line with a workforce directive that I released several weeks ago. We have to rebuild core competencies. The ability to turn around our launch pads and launch with frequency greater than every 3 years is imperative. Now, some people ask me questions on that already as we've talked about this, and it's like, how are we going to do that? How we can go from 3 years to something significantly less, to what I think should actually be inside of 1 year? And I'll point you to our history. We have a nice infographic that's coming out from Mercury, Gemini, Apollo through the shuttle program. I don't think it would surprise many of the folks in the room that our average launch cadence was closer to 3 months throughout all those programs, not 3 years. In fact, if you want a history tidbit, you look look at the time when Apollo 7 splashed down to when Apollo 8 launched, you're approximately 2 months apart. We need to start getting back to basics and moving in this direction. So rebuilding the civil servant workforce and restoring core capabilities. Again, that will directly contribute to NASA's launch cadence, where we're going to endeavor to get our launches inside of a year, specifically down to potentially 10 months. And then we are going to add missions. In fact, we're essentially going to pull in Artemis II to launch in 2027 with a revised mission profile. So instead of going directly to a lunar landing, we will endeavor to rendezvous in low Earth orbit with one or both of our lunar landers, test out integrated operations between Orion and the landers, ECLSS systems, even to the extent possible, if we can get up development components of our XEVA suits to test out vehicle interfaces, even just getting an astronaut in a suit in microgravity, we can learn a lot with the idea that we should be learning, and take this information back to inform hardware development, whether it's in the landers or in the suits before Artemis IV, where we will attempt to land on the moon. We are also, as a component of the strategy, endeavoring to preserve up to 2 landing attempts in 2028. So if we get it inside of the 10-month turnaround time that we would like to see, Artemis II will launch on its historic mission in the weeks ahead. Artemis III will have its opportunity, if we can, by mid-2027, which sets us up for an early 28 and a late 28 opportunity. So that is the approach that we are taking at a very high level. I will tell you, we're not surprising our industry or our stakeholders at this press conference right now. We've been having these discussions for a long time. In fact, I give a lot of credit to NASA and its team. No one at NASA forgot their history books. They knew how to do this. They've had plans like this for a long time. Now we're putting it in action. We had a chance to have these discussions across all of our industry partners, all of the prime contractors on the SLS vehicle, both of our HLS landing providers. Everybody agrees this is the only way forward. And I'll say, had similar conversations with all our stakeholders in Congress, and they're fully behind NASA in this approach. They know this is how NASA changed the world, and this is how NASA is going to do it again. With that, I'll hand it over to Ahmed.
Thank you, sir. Let's see, the path forward that the administrator laid out, I think, is pretty clear. It reduces risk.
We'll get you back out to that press conference out of Cape Canaveral, Florida, after the Artemis II mission has been postponed until April. We need to take a break here on Live Impact News on WCNC+. All right, time right now is 10:18 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Want to continue that live press conference happening right now following the Artemis mission 2. Postponed until April. Back to Cape Canaveral, Florida for Live Impact News.
So first things first, I'm going to talk about Artemis II. We were here just a week ago. We were all very excited last Friday after the successful wet dress rehearsal. We were in a great place at that time and looking at a launch in early March. Things changed pretty quickly last Friday evening, where we discovered the issue with the flow of helium to the ICPS, the upper stage of the SLS. That occurred as we were doing the reconfiguration of the SLS as we transitioned from the wet dress into the launch configuration. So that was it was disappointing, but that's where we were. And the response of our team was exactly what we should be doing. We allowed the data to talk to us and tell us what we needed to do, and allowed those findings, the operational findings, to guide us in what decisions that we needed to make. And the data were pretty clear that we were no-go. We were in a no-go situation without the ability to flow the helium to the RL-10 engines of the upper stage. So while we have the ability to access the boosters and the core stage out at the pad, we were in preparations already for being able to do the work that needed to be done out at the pad. We do not have the ability to access the interior of the upper stage at the pad. So that's what's the requirement to roll back to the vehicle assembly building. Our team has been working very quickly to transition from preparations for launch to preparations for rollback, and they did that extremely quickly. We were able to roll back within a couple of days. At the same time, the team has worked to streamline a plan for the work inside the VAB to give us the very best possible chance at a launch in the early April launch period. We got back to the VAB about 8 p.m. Wednesday night. The platforms within the VAB have already been extended. You can see them there in the live graphic. And the work has already begun, an incredible amount of work already going on. The suspected system components for the helium flow will be removed, and they're going to undergo detailed inspections and assess the cause of the issue. We hope to get down to the root cause of that and make changes not just to the hardware but to our operational procedures so that we don't encounter the same issue again when we roll back out to the pad. In addition to determining the cause of the helium flow issue, the teams are also going to do a number of other things while we're in the VAB. We will replace the batteries in the flight termination system and conduct another end-to-end test to meet the Eastern Range safety requirements. We'll give the closeout crew another shot, another chance at closing out the Orion capsule, get them a little bit more practice in closing out the Orion crew module. And then also the seal on the tail service mast umbilical that supplies the liquid oxygen to the rocket before liftoff. That is also going to be replaced to ensure a tight configuration. As you recall, of course, the twin seal that supplies, that goes to the liquid hydrogen was replaced out at the pad. So we've already replaced that one, so now we're going to replace the oxygen seal as well. And at the same time, we're also going to be reviewing the items that are already stowed in the Orion crew module. There's some of those time out, and we need to replace them, so we'll be doing a little bit of that as well. We will continue to provide updates, regular updates of how we're progressing within the VAB and our plans once they solidify on when we roll back out. We will definitely let everybody know. And just again to return to Administrator Isaacman's statements beyond Artemis II, I know that our team is up for this challenge. We are ready, and we are ready to get started on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now take your questions. Please ask one question at a time so that we can get to as many of you as possible. We'll circle back if we have time. We'll start with a question here in the room, but if you're joining us via the phone bridge, please press *1 to enter the queue. I'll take our first question. Will.
Hi, thanks. Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now. Thank you all for taking the time this morning. To the administrator or associate administrator, the plan for the revamped Artemis III to rendezvous with one or both of the HLS providers, can you speak to the importance of that component of doing Artemis III in low Earth orbit, and I guess how soon, given where both of those HLS vehicles are, you know, how feasible that might be to dock with them as opposed to just sort of rendezvousing and getting in proximity with them in low Earth orbit? Thank you.
So I'll begin and welcome Amit's additional inputs on this. I think one of the one of the challenges, but is also one of the greatest opportunities that comes from both our HLS providers is the ability to return America to the moon, not just, again, for the flag and the rocks, but to be able to actually build out that enduring presence. So what they're taking on is technically very challenging, but a lot of that involves, whether it's on-orbit prop transfer or rapid reusability, because it necessitates lots of launches. We don't find ourselves in that situation for a low Earth orbit rendezvous. So this is an opportunity to test out the vehicle. We know they're capable of doing is not as much the technical process. The most demanding process is how to get that vehicle to the moon. So it's a perfect opportunity for us to test the interface out between Orion and that vehicle, to actually get humans in the vehicle, start looking at the ecosystems. This is all going to help take down risk for a subsequent landing.
Yeah, I think for Artemis II, we're doing on-orbit handling of the vehicle to test out rendezvous techniques. A low Earth orbit rendezvous is a bit more challenging than a LEO rendezvous, just because the external environment, the external torques are different. But as the administrator said, this was in the plan. We have to be able to mate with these vehicles. We have to dock. We have to ingress. We have to do those things anyway. But the point of the sequence is to really recognize the production risk in the Enterprise and the development risk. The production risk is the flight rate on the Earth Ascent Systems, SLS Orion. The development risk is prop transfer. So the way to burn a common target there, if you will, is to conduct a mission that accepts those risks as real, but still make as much progress as we can, but to challenge both the production side and the development side at the same time.
Take our next question. Yes.
Thanks. Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. For anyone who wants to take this, does the revised Artemis III architecture require, or would you like to, for any of the HLSs to demonstrate the on-orbit refueling component, or does that fall off for Artemis IV? And for Artemis IV, if you're looking to fly in early-ish 2028 and you need a new upper stage, presumably it's still LOX and LH. What's available on that short notice?
Yeah, I think, first, we're not going to get into any specific manufacturer's name or the associated contracting process. Beyond that, as I mentioned, we've been discussing with industry this strategy for several weeks right now. Everyone acknowledges it's the right path forward. So we obviously have confidence in our ability to source and integrate a more standardized second stage to fulfill missions beyond Artemis.